Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 141st video on my video journal series. Today's date is Monday, the 29th of June, 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. But something I've been hearing about in the news recently is how some plays such as Waitresses and Beetlejuice have actually ended their Australian runs early because there's not enough demand for shows. Now, I know that comes a little bit out of left field, but yeah, it's something I've been hearing about a lot in the news. How these theatrical performances, even though they're supposed to go up until a certain date, they had to cancel them early. And because, yeah, there's pretty much like no demand. And the reason why is because obviously the cost of living crisis, people can't spend that sort of money to go to theaters anymore, which is sad. And these shows I've heard they're pretty like good, but I guess they can't entice enough people. But the thing that perplexes me, sorry, this is always a real tongue twister with me. The thing that perplexes me, see, you gotta really take it slowly. I talk way too fast, when they're doing like a play, right? Sometimes I like to speed up a bit, then I like to slow down. I just need to slow down. But anyway, so one thing that perplexes me is that, when I went to see the Book of Mormon last year here in Sydney, that show had I think like close to a 6-month run here in Sydney, and they did like 2 shows nearly every single day. And I went in like September, so I went like a few months after like premiered, and it was like still busy. I was obviously out for the evening session, but yeah, it was a packed theater. It was a very good show. I think my ticket was $130, Australian dollars. That is Australian dollary dues. Because I actually got like pretty good seats, and the guy even said at the box office, "Oh, these seats they usually go for like a lot more. It's just that you got like a good deal on them because they're like on sale." But I got like a pretty good view of the stage. I was like elevated up. I was like towards the middle, but you could clearly see everyone on stage, and it was perfect. I loved it. And obviously, yeah, this was just last year, and the movie theater was, what should I say, not movie theater, just regular theater was packed. See, that's what I mean about taking it slow. But anyway, yeah, so the theater was packed, and yeah, it just kind of like, caught me by surprise. I know there was the Back to the Future musical last year. I wish I saw that. I didn't see that in the theaters, obviously, but I wish I got around to seeing it because I heard it was actually pretty good, and I heard it was successful. I know with the Book of Mormon, they actually had to add like extra dates. Like they actually had to extend its run for just a little bit more because it was so popular. Um, Back to the Future also like sold out, I believe. But yeah, now you think, oh, something as big as Beetlejuice. Oh, I heard like Waitress is like pretty high up there also. Yeah, they had to end their Australian runs early. They had to cancel a lot of shows, and same thing with music festivals. They've outright cancelled a few. I can't remember which ones. There was like that one in, I think, Byron Bay. Like, was it Splendor or something like that? I forgot the name, but I know they've been canceling them for a few years now because of cost of living and due to like low demand. It's a nice thing that conventions are still going ahead, obviously, but I think with the difference between conventions and music festivals is that music festivals, um, you know, actually, yeah, what is the difference? Because I guess conventions, there's always going to be a demand for that. There's always going to be a demand for like conventions with music festivals, obviously, but maybe because conventions appeal to like the more of the hardcore crowd who are willing to spend more money rather than music festivals and theater, which can attract, I guess, a lot of like just regular people who wouldn't want to spend like a gazillion dollars on trying to go to a single event and do all the extras. And maybe I'm just talking about the convention experience. I came back from a convention not too long ago, but yeah, I guess conventions just have like a different sort of demographic, and obviously there are like just casuals. I call them casuals, even though I'm one myself. Casual trying to pretend they're all nerdy, but um, I've been to conventions myself, and I can see the demand is always going to be there. And people I guess are willing to drop more money at conventions than I guess on a single uh, ticket at a you know theater performance or a music festival. Or maybe because like they get like bigger artists involved. Don't get me wrong, they can get like very big people involved at like conventions and all that, but you know, conventions can easily make up that money by charging extra for autograph signings and all that. With concerts, you only really have like one major source of revenue, and that is tickets. Same thing with plays. The only source of revenue is obviously tickets, merchandise, but it's mostly going to be tickets. All right. So yeah, it is yet again very disappointing to see that I guess the arts haven't really recovered since COVID, and obviously with COVID you got the whole rise in inflation, cost of living, which has really I guess impeded the arts and plays and all that. And you know what? Yeah, I'll be interested in like seeing these plays. Obviously, if I had I guess more money, but yet again though. Um, yeah, it's like obviously you only go to like the theater. It depends. Like if you go to like the Capitol or Capitol Theater, let's say, right? Let's say Capitol Theater. Tickets can be pricey. It's pretty much like going to a concert. So you don't really go there like once every couple or so months. If you're like an avid or semi-avid, I guess, enjoyer. If you're like a more of a hardcore person, you might go there like once every month or once every 2 months. If you're just someone like me, you might only go there once in every 6 months or once every year, or just like sporadically in your life. So yeah, I guess that's that like sort of trouble, and the fact that I performances, right, theater, they whenever I um, whenever what do I mean by this? I mean, whenever like a foreign production comes to, let's say here in Sydney, right, Book of Mormon, they usually just do legs, right? We're doing this for a limited amount of time from July till December. Book your tickets because yeah, they're doing like a whole world tour, or they're just focusing on one city, then moving to another city. And that happens with domestic productions as well, because theatrical performances, much like movies and cinemas, are only for a limited time only. Um, and they require actors, people who have to memorize the exact same lines over and over again, and they require direction, music, coordination. There's a lot that goes into theater. And the Book of Mormon was, I think, like 2 hours long. It was well over 2 hours, actually. It was a very long, but well worth the money. And just seeing how like all the actors on stage had to like remember everything and coordinate everything, like it was an art in of itself. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into play and theatre. Um, Certainly not something I'll be capable of, but something I like respect heavily. And obviously, the Book of Mormon's the only play that I've been to, but at the end, everyone just gave like a rowdy applause, like a standing ovation. It was like nothing I have ever seen before because it was my first one. But yeah, it was just a great atmosphere. Being in a packed theater. So yeah, like you wouldn't want to go to the theater, like especially a theatrical performance when it's like near empty. And I'm sure the actors and production company don't want near empty theaters, so that's why they I guess had to cancel those shows, which is yet again very saddening. And I've rarely seen instances of movie cinemas canceling movie screenings. That is pretty weird though. For some movie theaters, they put like you know um you know blockbuster movies, right? They obviously want to get the hottest new blockbuster movies on the biggest screens and the biggest theaters, and they want that to be their like main sort of selling point. All right, whenever a new movie comes out, they always add the most amount of shows, the most amount of seats, the most amount of screens um, that they have towards that particular movie or whatever's hot. Basically whatever hot new stuff Hollywood is pumping out. And sometimes those movie theaters can actually, like those movie, um, do I call them theaters? Do I call them rooms? Sometimes those screenings, that'll be a better word. Sometimes those screenings can be empty. Like there might only be like a few seats taken, and then that's it. And you think it'll be running the cinemas a loss, you know? It's like why screen a movie as big as I don't know, the Avengers, for instance, right? Um, you know, raking in billions at the box office, but yet there's only like a few people here. Wouldn't you want to discount tickets, get more people inside of those theaters? And it made me think, well, would it actually be more economical for a movie theater to do an empty screening of a film rather than just completely cancel it? Because let's face it, right? They already have the copy of the film there, right? And nowadays, film is projected digitally, right? You don't need a person to swap out the reels of film anymore. At least with like, if you're watching you know, a conventional movie, right? That is not like recorded on, I guess, IMAX 70 millimeter film or whatever. Um, so yeah, like most movies nowadays, whenever you go to the cinema, are digital. I know some of them are still like film based, but um, if you just go to your standard local movie theater, digital. So all you have to do is just hit play or play the movie. And now I've actually been to like a lone screening. I've actually been to screenings where I'm the only person inside of the cinema. Um, and that only happened to me. The only time I can remember thoroughly was Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City, which was a movie based on the second Resident Evil game. And that was all the way back in late 2021, and I was the only one in the movie theater the entire time. No employee came in, no one else. And it obviously, well, I guess like got me thinking, you know, hey, like obviously a cinema advertises, right, that they're going to show a movie at this time in this um, at this specific location. Then instead of like canceling it, it will be like, all right, well, it will be worth it just to show the movie. Maybe someone will come in, we will break in an extra $20 or so. Do cinemas have like a commitment to like showing a movie? Obviously they can refund people, but like it'll cause them a much more, I guess, trouble than just simply, stating, we'll just take the bullet, you know, we'll show the movie anyway, even though we don't anticipate a whole lot of people showing up. And I guess that's how theater and, or should I say, plays and movies differ, sort of. At least in my brain, I might be wrong about this, because there's a lot more that goes into, guess, a stage production than there is just hitting play on a digital projector. So yeah, I guess in the long run, at least within my view, it would be, I guess, more economical for movie theaters to show near empty screening of movies because instead of canceling those movies and just creating more hassle for them, they'll be like, all right, we'll just show even though nobody's watching, because you never know if someone just walks in and we already reserved this specific movie screen for this movie. You can't like swap it out for another movie. It'll be too late for that. It's kind of like when it's like when what's a good analogy? I don't really have a good analogy for this. That's like the pretty much the only sort of reasoning that pops into my head at the moment. But I might come up with one later on in the video. Who knows? Um, but yet again, I'm no expert. But that would be, I guess, the logical reason why, even if they might not get much out of it. Anyway, so I can also be close that book about movie theaters and Broadway. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Well, I guess in regards to the news and all of that, you know, maybe movies, right? I haven't really been looking at movies too much. I know I'm going to see the Detective Conan movie soon, but I've been looking around for like other movies, and nothing's really been, I guess, um, nothing's really, I guess, interested. I guess nothing's really, you know, caught my eye. Let's say that nothing's really caught my eye. And I often find myself rewatching just a lot of old movies because I understand the plot of like older movies better than like new movies. Am I the only one who thinks that? I know old movies, obviously they've been overanalyzed to death, and maybe because I just watch a whole lot of old movies, but I find the plot of new movies to be like so confusing and all over the place sometimes. Like, I end up just like questioning everything, and I don't get like the obvious. I have to like ask the friend next to me, "Hey, what does this mean?" It's like following the plot of Avatar or Dune. Um, Funnily enough, with both of those movies, I've watched Avatar 2 and 3 in theaters. I don't think I've ever watched the first Avatar movie, right? Because that released when I was like 3 years old. Um, I watched the second Dune movie in theaters. I never watched the first one. So when I watched the second one in theaters all the way back in 2024 at Event Cinemas George Street, I remember, I was in VMAX and I was like, oh, this looks like a very good movie. I do not know what is going on because my mistake, I did not watch the first Dune movie. So there was just sand people politics. I remember the seats were very comfy and I think I nearly fell asleep. Because like let's say even if you watch the first Dune movie, Dune Part 2, there is a lot of like dialogue. It's just basically desert politics, and we're not talking the Middle Eastern kind. We're talking about the Dune kind. All right. I know there's a blue guy in that movie, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And giant, um, the giant worm with like all the teeth coming out. Actually, Dune was filmed in, I think, North Africa. Was it Morocco or Tunisia? So yeah, that's pretty cool factoid there. And what other movies have I watched where I've watched like the sequel but never the original? Maybe with the Terminator as well. I've watched Terminator to Judgment Day, not in theaters, just on the internet, and I don't think I've ever watched the first Terminator film. No. I've watched Urusei Yatsura 2 a lot. I've watched the first movie, Only You, but I've only watched that like once. I've watched the second movie over and over again. I've watched it at least like a dozen times. So yeah, it really is, I guess, sort of confusing when you watch the sequel and you never watch the original. Especially when you're like in theaters, because when you're in the theater, like you can't pause the screen or anything, so you have to be like constantly locked in and just like paying attention to every little thing, right, while not being distracted on your phone or trying to look around the room to see other people's reactions. Um, Man, what else? Yeah, so I was about to follow up with that with yeah, like I guess distractions, especially with like those 3D glasses. I remember watching I watched Avatar 3 in 3D. And it was a cool movie in 3D. Don't get me wrong, but I just ended up like fidgeting with the glasses, trying to get like the best sort of angle to watch that movie. But yeah, Avengers. On the topic of Avatar, there's Avatar 4, which is going to come out in a few years' time, and isn't it amazing to think that wow, it's been like a nearly 4-year gap between well, should I say 3 year gap? Sorry, because Avatar 2 released in around late 2022, and Avatar 3 released in around late 2025. 3 year gap between those movies. That is, yeah, like it makes me feel old because I remember watching the second one in theaters. I went to the bathroom twice during the Avatar 2. You know, my bladder was obviously full, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't be missing out on much anyway. But yeah, I liked both of those movies. Maybe I can close that book about Avatar, and then yeah, like obviously, um, I've just been watching, a lot of the older movies, and sometimes I like to go to like special screenings of old movies in movie theaters. As a kid, whenever I went to the movie theater, I'll just be watching one or two things: the hottest new movie or documentary, because it was a school field trip excursion. You know, most most of the time it was option A, the hottest new movie. But I sometimes went to the theater to watch documentary, or watch one of those like IMAX movies where you like it's under the sea and you can see all these like sea creatures just popping out right in front of you. Um, yeah, and as a kid, obviously, I didn't get to see like any retro movies in the movie theater because my parents said, "Oh, we can easily get these movies for you on like DVD or whatever. Why do you want to watch them in movie theaters?" But I'm like, there's something special about watching film, celluloid film, at a at a movie theater, and I don't think I've ever watched a celluloid film at a movie theater. Man, that is a mouthful to say, especially at this time of night. But anyway, yeah, and I'll definitely like to see like an 18 or um, 36 millimeter film. Actually, maybe for IMAX, I think IMAX still use film, but they also use like a digital um, projector as well. It's very technical, the whole IMAX process. I know Oppenheimer came out on 70 millimeter. Did Napoleon come out on 70 millimeter IMAX? Because that's the only movie I watched in. Now, I watched Napoleon in Sydney IMAX, at the Sydney IMAX theater. Then I watched another one. It was like that sci-fi movie. I still got the movie ticket for it, but it was like that very blurry sci-fi movie in my mind, like the Avenger, not the Avenger, but like, uh, even thinking about it, like causes my brain to crash. But I'll definitely look up the name. I watched two movies at the Sydney IMAX theater. Um, the new Sydney IMAX theater, and I don't think those movies were film. I think they might have been digital. But anyway, getting back to the topic of celluloid film, I'll definitely like to watch a movie on celluloid film, especially like older film, like 8 millimeter, or maybe like like 32 millimeter or whatever. Just watch like an original um, print of the film being played. And film slowly degrades over time. You want to see like some of that, I guess, wear and tear to add to the to add to the immersion. Um, and I can see why, I guess, not a whole lot of movies do celluloid film anymore. It's highly flammable. It's a pain in the ass to store, and I guess like it'll be easier just to get a file of the movie and play on a digital projector. At the end of the day, I just want to see the movie. I don't care how it's stored or anything like that. Um, but I think it is. There's a special charm to it. I can as well close that book. Other than that, have I ranted before on this channel about reserved movie seating? I most probably have, but yeah, I don't understand the concept of reserved movie seats. Um, they only really work when I guess you know which movie you're gonna watch. You're like, hey, I really want to watch this movie. I really want to book this seat because it's gonna be the premiere, and I know a whole bunch of other people will want to see this movie, and I just want to reserve my seat in advance. In that case, I can understand. But with most movies, usually I just show up on the day and buy my ticket at the box office or one of those like digital touch screens. And yeah, that's like pretty much it because I don't want to pay the online fee first of all. But second of all, I just like sometimes walk by a movie theater, not intending to watch a movie. Then I see a poster, I'm like, hey, I didn't know they were going to show that movie. I want to watch that. Um, and with reserved movie theater seats, like obviously the big chains do it. Um, it's all reserved nowadays. Um, and like the thing movie um, about reserving movie seats is that you can't really change your seat during the movie, right? It's basically people picking where they want to sit, and there's a chance that someone, like a complete stranger, can sit right next to you or near you in a near empty movie theater. But yet you can't change your seat. You're like, why can't I not spread out? If there's only like five people within the theater, including myself, and there's like no one else around, like, you know, by the terms of the ticket, you're not allowed to, I guess, switch your seats because you might get other people who come in, and then you're like, hey, why are you in my spot? And you just get that sort of confrontation. But like, yeah, it's just like reserved movie seats. I reckon it's just like a very unnecessary idea. I can understand, the recliners and all that, if you want to get like a special booth seat, that makes sense. But, like, I think we should just switch back to, I guess, general admission. And, this is just my personal opinion, right? Because I've definitely had like movie experiences where I book a seat, right? And then you just get like someone right next to you who you don't know. You're like, can't you just sit anywhere else? But obviously everyone wants to pick the middle rows, so everyone's like clustered around the middle rows. Meanwhile, with general admission, you just pay, um, the same price as everyone else. You just pay like a standard movie ticket fee. You go in the movie theater and you can choose where to sit. So then everyone's like, all right, well, since, because, when you're booking a ticket, right, a reserved movie ticket, you see like all those like red boxes and that's all taken. So you often have to pick like a very like cramped area. With general admission, sure, everyone initially starts clustering around the same spot, but then people can spread out. People have got more options. If you're in like a large group, that actually makes it a lot easier for you. Um, on the day at least, as long as you're early, you can go in. You can all sit together as a group. If you're a large group booking for a reserved movie and there's like a lot of seats taken, then it makes it a nightmare. Um, but yeah, I just like general admission, and I notice a lot of the, I guess, like independent cinemas do these, the ones that often run by like movie fans, and yeah, I just like it. I just like having a freedom of like, all right, well, I just want to sit depending on how good of a view I get of the movie screen. Because when you're like often just selecting based off like a map, it sort of makes it hard to like judge in your brain, especially if you're a first time movie goer going like, all right, should I get the F row? Should I get the J row, the K row? You know, you don't really know what row you've like you don't really know the road you picked was actually good or not until you actually step inside the movie theater and you're like, damn, I should have gotten like one seat ahead or one seat back because yeah, my road's pretty crap. That rhymes actually. So yeah, that's why I just like general admission. You pay, um, you know, the same price for a movie ticket. Maybe you want to pay a little bit extra to get the recliners or a booth seat, whatever. I don't mind. But for the vast majority of seats, you pay and then you just get to sit wherever you want. I think that will be a much better system. Obviously, you know, each to their own. Each has their own pros and cons. And I do like the idea of like obviously um, reserving my place within the movie theater, especially if it's a popular movie. But ultimately, I do like the concept of, I guess, having freedom on the day to essentially switch around seats. And it's like when you like during the movie, right? If you go to the bathroom, let's say you're in like a movie theater with no reserved seating. When you're in the movie, you go to the bathroom, all that. It's not like anyone's gonna take your seat, right? Because the person sitting next to you knows that, hey, this is this guy's seat, right? It's not everyone's gonna play like musical chairs during the movie theater. Go like, oh, this guy left, I'm gonna snag his seat. No, nobody's gonna do that. So yeah, I don't think it's a completely bad system. I think it's actually a very good system, you know. And I'm trying to go to, I guess, a lot more independent movie theater chains because the big ones, not to say they're bad or anything, but only go there when it's like they're playing a movie that I like, and I don't see any other theater playing that because they might have like exclusive rights or whatever, or it might be like a you know one of those like time exclusive sort of things, and I'll go to like a big chain, but I like the smaller theaters, because they're often run by like people who know cinema well, and you can find a lot more of the niche stuff at the local theaters, and like they often have cheaper ticket prices than the major theaters. Would you believe it or not? Despite them being a lot smaller, their ticket prices are just about the same or even cheaper than like the bigger chains. And here in Australia, the average price for an adult movie ticket as of recording this is around 20 to 22 Australian dollars. Um, or actually, no, that's for a student concession. Yeah, if you're buying an adult movie ticket, that can actually cost you up to 26 AUDs. Sorry. If you're a student or pensioner, it'll be closer to like $20, and if you're like a child, it might be like 16 or 18 AUD. But yeah, going to the theaters is expensive. Movie theaters, plays, and all that. Linking it all back together, it is quite expensive. So I can sort of understand why they're canceling some plays and theatrical performances. But yeah, with movie theaters, I guess they don't really cancel movie screenings unless something's gone terribly wrong because of the whole economics of it. It's like, yeah, we'd rather play this movie in front of like no one rather than just completely like scrap it because that takes extra effort. And with movie theaters, they've got like multiple screens, right? They can afford to like lose one screen, and who knows, maybe someone will come in like midway during the movie. Um, but yeah, like that's pretty much all I have to say. Yet again, no, support your local theater, independent movie theaters, Broadway productions, and all that. There's a lot that goes into these establishments and plays, and that's something to be recognized. And I like going to obviously like indie movie theaters. I like watching plays. I've only really watched one play, but I want to watch more. That cater towards my interests, and it's just amazing to see in person. Uh, but yeah, I'll just say where you can, you know you the theater going process is a very magical experience. Um, and yeah, I just think it's cool. But that's enough of me talking, and I guess I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, see you, take care. See you all tomorrow. I know I really said that earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Take care.